They say how you start something often determines how you finish it, and nowhere is that truer than with your day. The first hour, the first step, the first decision you make when your eyes open, it all matters. You see, the morning is more than just a time slot on the clock. It's the gateway to your greatness. If you want to control your life, you have to first control your mornings. Let me put it plainly, success begins before the sun comes up. When you wake up early, you claim something most people give away too easily: control. Most people roll out of bed in a daze, already behind, already tired, already reacting to someone else's agenda, the emails, the messages, the pressure. It all rushes in like a tidal wave, and they haven't even brushed their teeth yet. But you, if you decide to wake up early, you get to lead the day. You walk into it, not rushed, not frazzled, but grounded and prepared. There's something powerful about being awake when the world is still quiet. The air is different. The noise hasn't started. There's no one needing you, no demands pulling at your time. It's just you and your thoughts. And what you do in that space becomes the foundation for everything that comes after. Think about it. How do champions begin their day? Do they sleep into the last minute and stumble into their responsibilities? No. They rise early. They own their time. They prepare their minds, their bodies, and their spirits, and they do it when it's hardest, when it would be easier to hit the snooze button and postpone responsibility. And that's the real key, isn't it? Doing what's difficult when no one's watching. Waking up early isn't about punishment, it's about positioning. You're positioning yourself to win. You're putting yourself at the front of the line, not just in time, but in mindset. Because when you get up before the rest of the world, you're not just ahead of them on the clock, you're ahead in preparation, ahead in clarity, ahead in intent. Here's what happens when you wake up early. You make your bed, you move your body, you feed your mind, you set your goals, you reflect, you breathe, you visualize. You don't react, you design. And by the time the world wakes up, you've already won half the battle. And that builds confidence, quiet confidence, not arrogance. Just the peace that comes from knowing you've already invested in yourself while others haven't even started. Not about being better than anyone else, it's about being better than you were yesterday. But here's the truth. Most won't do it. Most won't wake up early. They'll make excuses. They'll say they're night owls, or that it's too hard, or that they need more sleep. And while they're negotiating with their comfort, you're building character. You're cultivating discipline. You're growing your edge. Hey, let me tell you, waking up early is one of the simplest habits that leads to some of the biggest transformations. It's not magic, it's not easy, but it is powerful. It sends a message to your subconscious. I am in charge of my life. And when you say that enough times with your actions, your life begins to reflect that belief. Own the morning and you'll find yourself owning more than just your schedule. You'll start owning your mood, your health, your finances, your relationships, your direction, your identity. Because mornings are not just where days begin, they're where legacies begin, where decisions are made in silence that roar in success later. So start tomorrow a little earlier, just 30 minutes, then an hour, then turn that hour into a daily ritual of growth. And watch what happens when you stop starting the day late and start leading it early. Discipline. That's the word most people avoid but secretly admire, because it's the dividing line between who you are and who you're trying to become. And if there's one place where discipline is born and tested every single day, it's in those quiet moments before the sun rises. Let's be honest, the bed is warm, the world is still asleep, and no one would judge you for pulling the blanket over your head and giving yourself just 10 more minutes. But here's the truth. Every time you silence that alarm and drift back into comfort, you reinforce a habit that delays your dreams. Every snooze button is a small surrender. And discipline doesn't live in surrender. It lives in decision. Getting up early isn't about punishing yourself, it's about mastering yourself. It's about saying, I do what needs to be done, even when I don't feel like doing it. That's what separates the average from the extraordinary. Not talent, not intelligence, but the willingness to choose discipline over desire. And that choice? It happens before the world even sees you. No cameras, no applause, just you and your internal voice. And what you do in that moment becomes who you are in every other moment. Think about it. The moment you open your eyes and that alarm sounds, you're not just waking up, you're confronting yourself. You're faced with a decision. Will I choose what's easy or will I choose what's right? Discipline is forged in these early hours when your mind is tempted to negotiate. It's too early. You went to bed late. You deserve to rest. But here's what you need to understand. Your mind will always argue for comfort. That's its job, to protect you. But your spirit craves growth, and growth never lives in comfort. When you wake up early, you're not just managing your time, you're developing mental toughness. You're telling yourself that your goals matter more than your excuses. You're practicing self-respect, because let's face it, if you can't keep a promise to yourself about getting out of bed, how can you trust yourself to keep the bigger promises? And this matters more than most people realize, because discipline is a transferable skill. The ability to rise early bleeds into everything else. How you eat, how you work, how you show up in relationships. You become someone who follows through, someone who doesn't need to be pushed, someone who leads themselves. The world respects discipline. Opportunities come to the person who is prepared, not the person who is always playing catch-up. And preparation, it starts early, before the meetings, before the chaos, before the distractions. When it's just you, your goals, and a choice, you might not see results in the beginning. No one claps for you when you're up at 5 a.m. No one celebrates your small victories, but those small wins, they stack. They create a kind of inner momentum. And over time, that momentum becomes unstoppable. That's the secret the disciplined know. You don't rise early because it's easy. You rise early because it makes you better. Every day, you prove to yourself that you can choose discomfort now in exchange for greatness later. And in a world full of people waiting for motivation, the disciplined rise without it. They don't need to feel like it, they just do it, because they've trained their minds to obey their values, not their moods. And what begins as a decision to wake up early becomes a lifestyle of winning, not by chance, but by commitment, not by emotion, but by intention. Because discipline, it doesn't start in the gym. It doesn't start in the office. It starts before sunrise. There's something sacred about the early morning silence, something most people overlook because they've never truly tasted it. In a world addicted to noise, constant movement, endless scrolling, and urgent distractions, silence becomes rare and therefore valuable. And in those early morning hours, before the phone rings, before the emails demand your attention, before the rest of the world starts shouting for your time, there's quiet, and in that quiet, there's power. Because silence isn't empty, it's full of answers. It's in the silence that you can hear yourself think. It's where clarity lives. When you wake up early and step into that stillness, you finally get to listen to the voice that's been buried under obligations, opinions and obligations. The voice that says, this is who I really am. This is what I really want. You can't hear that voice during rush hour. You can't hear it with background music, social media feeds, or endless notifications. You only hear it in the calm. And that calm exists most purely in the early morning. Some people chase peace all day and never find it. They look for it in vacations, in weekends, in quiet corners of a loud life. But the truth is, peace doesn't show up randomly. You create it. And one of the most consistent ways to create it is by waking up before the world and meeting yourself in silence. That silence gives you time to reflect on your goals, your relationships, your direction. It gives you the space to ask the hard questions. Am I proud of how I'm living? Am I growing or coasting? Am I becoming the person I promised myself I'd be? Most people don't ask these questions, not because they don't care, but because they never slow down long enough to hear the answers. The early morning offers that space, is where inner work begins. But silence doesn't just bring clarity, it brings strength. When you learn to sit with yourself in the quiet, without distractions, without noise, you build something most people lack today: emotional control. You learn how to regulate your mind before the chaos begins. You learn how to pause, breathe, and act with intention rather than impulse. And that's a skill that transforms every area of your life. Think about it. Who leads better, the person who reacts out of stress or the one who responds out of stillness? Who builds more, someone scattered and distracted or someone calm and centered? The answer is obvious, yet few take the time to center themselves in the silence before the noise. Early morning silence also opens the door for creativity. Some of your best ideas, your most inspired thoughts, your most meaningful breakthroughs, they're born in those quiet hours. Why? Because silence gives your mind the room to roam freely. You're not solving someone else's problems. You're not scrolling past someone else's life. You're dreaming. You're designing. That's why some of the greatest thinkers, artists, entrepreneurs, and leaders build their day around the early morning. Because that silence, it's their sanctuary. It's where their strategy is born, where their confidence is reinforced, where their wisdom is sharpened. And don't mistake silence for laziness. The early riser who sits in silence is not doing nothing. They're preparing. They're aligning. They're sharpening the blade before the battle begins. They're calming their nervous system, grounding their thoughts, and fueling their soul. That kind of preparation doesn't just change your morning, it changes your identity. In the silence, you don't have to perform, you don't have to please, you don't have to rush. You just have to be real with yourself, your intentions, your potential. And when the noise finally arrives, and it always does, you meet it with a quiet strength that no alarm clock can give and no external chaos can take away. There's a unique kind of progress that happens when no one's watching. A kind of success that's not broadcasted, not posted online, not praised in the moment. It's the success that's earned in silence, in solitude. When the rest of the world is still asleep, that's when you move ahead, not loudly, not instantly, but steadily, inch by inch, day by day, while others are in bed dreaming. You're wide awake, building. And that edge, that's everything. Because let's be real, everyone wants more out of life. Everyone wants the promotion, the breakthrough, the freedom, the results. But wanting isn't rare. What's rare is the one who's willing to work while others rest. Who's willing to put in the reps, the effort, the hours before the crowd even opens their eyes. That's the difference. That's where the gap is created. Not in talent, but in timing. Not in luck, but in sacrifice. When you rise early and put in the work before the sun, you gain something far greater than time. You gain positioning. You're not reacting to the day, you're ahead of it. You're not caught in the rush, you're setting the pace. You've already made decisions, already trained, already invested in yourself while others are still deciding if they'll hit snooze one more time. You get ahead by doing the things most people put off. While they're sleeping, you're strategizing. While they're procrastinating, while they're planning for someday, you're planting seeds today. And those seeds, they compound. Every early morning workout, every extra page read, every quiet hour of focus, it all stacks up. It may not look like much in the beginning, but keep doing it and suddenly you're miles ahead, not because you had more opportunities, but because you used more of the hours others gave away. See, the morning hours are the most underutilized real estate of the day. They're open, they're free of noise, no meetings, no emails, no obligations, just space to think, create, prepare. And if you own that time, you start to own outcomes. Because the results the world applauds are built in moments the world never sees. It's not about being superhuman. It's about being willing to get uncomfortable, willing to delay gratification, willing to choose growth over comfort. And when you commit to that, even for 1 hour each morning, you start to feel something shift. You're no longer rushing through your day, you're designing it. You're no longer overwhelmed, you're organized. You're no longer behind, you're in front, leading. And people will notice. They won't understand it at first. They'll ask, how are you always so calm? How do you get so much done? Why does everything seem to work out for you? But they don't see the early hours, the hours where you grind in silence, where you put in the work with no spotlight, no praise, no fanfare. Just focus. Because here's the truth. The world rewards preparation. Life opens doors to those who are already moving. And early mornings give you a head start in that movement. You're not hoping for momentum, you're creating it. You're not wishing for clarity, you're carving it out while others chase it in a rush. Most people will keep sleeping through their potential, waiting for the right time. But you're ahead. And that advantage isn't just measured in hours, it's measured in outcomes. Most people stumble into their day, they wake up late, they're already behind, rushing through the house, coffee spilling on the counter, checking emails before their feet even hit the floor. And from that moment on, they're not in control, they're chasing control. The day owns them. The tone is set, and it wasn't set by them. But there's another way, a better way, a more powerful way to live. You don't have to react to the tone of the day. You can decide it. You can shape it. You can stand up, take a breath, and set the rhythm before anything outside of you starts pulling at your peace. That's the gift of waking up early. It gives you the first word. And when you have the first word, you control the narrative. You see, the morning is the anchor. It's not just another part of the day. It's the launch pad. It determines the trajectory of how you think, how you feel, and how you respond. And when you wake up with purpose, with clarity, with discipline, you establish momentum that compounds into everything else. Instead of waiting to see how the world treats you, you decide how you'll treat the world. But here's the key. It doesn't happen by accident. You have to intend to lead your day. You have to choose your energy before someone else chooses it for you. Because if you don't program your mind, life will do it for you. And life doesn't always have your best interest in mind. Life is full of surprises, stress, chaos, negativity. If you're not grounded, you'll absorb all of it. But when you rise early, slow down, and connect with your direction, you create an inner rhythm that's hard to shake. Imagine starting your day not with anxiety, but with intention. Not with noise, but with silence. Not with urgency, but with vision. That's the power of setting the tone. It might mean spending 10 minutes in reflection before the phone goes on. It might mean reviewing your goals while the world is still asleep. It might mean exercising your body before you exhaust your mind. These aren't just habits, they're declarations. They say, I am in charge here. I decide what matters. I choose how I show up. And when you step into your morning with that mindset, the world can't knock you off balance so easily. Bad news doesn't break you, interruptions don't derail you, people don't dictate your peace. Because you've already rooted yourself in something deeper, your own clarity, your own rhythm, your own intention. It's like music. If you don't set the beat, you'll dance to someone else's. If you don't choose your frequency, you'll absorb the chaos of the crowd. But when you rise early and align yourself with your purpose before the world gets loud, you become the one who plays the music, not just listens to it. And it shows. It shows in how you talk, how you walk, how you make decisions. You're not flustered, you're focused. You're not drained by noon. You're building strength all day because the tone you set in the morning becomes the energy you carry into everything else. That's leadership, not leading people, leading yourself. Because how you start is how you continue. And if the start is grounded, intentional, and powerful, the rest will follow. Every great builder starts with a solid foundation, and your morning is your foundation. It determines the weight you can carry, the storms you can face, and the speed at which you can rise. Don't give that power away. Don't wait for the world to give you permission to feel strong. Wake up early, breathe deep, and decide, this day will belong to you. If you want to respect yourself, really respect yourself, not for what you say, but for what you do, you've got to master one principle: consistency, not talent, not motivation, not even intelligence. Consistency. Because consistency is the foundation of self-trust, and self-trust is the root of self-respect. When you wake up early day after day, even when you don't feel like it, you're doing more than just starting your morning. You're keeping a promise to yourself. And that's where it begins. Because every time you say you'll do something, and then actually do it, you cast a vote for the kind of person you believe you are. You're building your identity, brick by brick, action by action. Most people struggle with self-worth, not because they aren't good people, not because they aren't capable, but because deep down, they don't believe their own word. They've broken too many promises to themselves. They've said, I'll change, and didn't. They've said, I'll start tomorrow, and didn't. And over time, something dangerous starts to happen. They stop taking themselves seriously. They don't trust their own voice. And without trust, there's no respect. But there's a way out of that, a way to rebuild. And it's through the quiet, steady, unglamorous work of consistency. That's what early rising gives you. It's a daily chance to win back your own respect. To prove that when you say, I'll get up at 5 a.m., you mean it. To show that you can follow through. Not once, not just when it's easy, but always. That kind of behavior, simple, steady, repetitive, it rewires your identity. And when you consistently do what you said you would do, you begin to feel different. You don't need affirmation. You don't need applause. You walk differently, think differently, act differently, because you know you're someone who shows up, someone who honors their commitments. And that creates a deep, immovable kind of self-respect. Not the kind that wavers with compliments. Not the kind that depends on how others see you, but the kind that comes from within, earned, not given. You begin to take pride in the small things, not because they're small, but because they're consistent. You begin to see the early mornings not as a chore, but as a declaration. I'm in control, I am disciplined, I am reliable. That's identity level living. And once you start operating from identity, motivation becomes irrelevant. You don't have to feel like it, you just do it, because that's who you are. And here's the beautiful part. That consistency bleeds into everything else. You keep your word to your body, you keep your word to your business, you keep your word to your relationships. Because self-respect doesn't exist in isolation. When you respect yourself, you naturally begin to respect others more deeply. You become more honest, more present, more intentional. And the world notices not because you brag, but because your presence carries in. And it all starts with the morning, that first choice, that first win, that first commitment. When you own the morning, you earn the day. And when you earn the day consistently, you begin to earn back your self-respect. One early rising at a time. Consistency is not about perfection. You'll miss some days, you'll slip, but what matters is your return, your bounce back, your refusal to let failure rewrite your story. You just keep coming back to the habits that define you, back to the morning, back to the grind, back to the version of you that doesn't make excuses. Because the person who shows up every day, especially when it's hard, is the person who becomes unstoppable. Not overnight, not with fireworks, but with quiet, relentless, disciplined repetition. And in that rhythm, you rise, not just earlier than others, but higher than your former self. The way you begin the day sets the tone for everything that follows. It's not just about beating the sun out of bed. It's about stepping into the hours before the world wakes and taking ownership of your direction. When you master the morning, you claim the highest ground of the battlefield before anyone else even shows up. And that advantage, it changes everything. Because here's the truth. Most people don't start their day, they survive it. They roll out of bed half asleep, already behind. Their energy is low, their mind is cluttered, and their schedule owns them instead of the other way around. They go from fire to fire, never feeling like they're in control. And by the end of the day, they're exhausted, not from doing too much, but from never getting grounded, from reacting instead of leading, from surviving instead of deciding. But when you take the first hour of your day and own it with intention, everything shifts. You gain clarity, you gain momentum, you gain peace. Because the morning is where momentum begins. If you can win the first hour, you set a psychological pattern. I am in charge today. I lead, I don't follow. I create, I don't chase. It's not just a motivational phrase, it's a framework. And the more you live it, the more you start to experience a different kind of life. One where you're not always playing defense. One where you're not constantly overwhelmed or behind. One where you're grounded, focused, and purposeful. It's in the morning that you have the most control, no interruptions, no noise, no distractions pulling you away, just you and your choices. What will you do with that time? Will you build your body? Will you feed your mind? Will you fuel your soul? Will you plan your path before the world gets noisy? Those small acts, reading a book, journaling your thoughts, stretching your body, sitting in silence, reviewing your goals. They may seem simple, but they compound, and more than that, they center you. They remind you before anyone else gets a voice in your head that this day belongs to you. You don't master the day by waiting until 10 a.m. when the meetings start. You don't master the day by checking your phone before your purpose. You master the day by owning the first hour. And that ownership gives you leverage over the rest of your life. You've heard the phrase, win the morning, win the day. It's not a cliche, it's a strategy. Because when you win the morning, you put yourself in a state of clarity and power that carries over into every conversation, every decision, every challenge. And the best part, you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to rise at 4 a.m. and run a marathon. You just have to decide that your first hour matters, that you're going to stop giving it away to the news, to the inbox, to the noise, that you're going to claim it fully and completely for growth. It's not about the clock, it's about the commitment. The commitment to yourself, the commitment to your vision, the commitment to start strong so you can stay strong. Because once you experience the power of a mastered morning, once you taste the calm, the clarity, the quiet confidence it brings, you'll never want to go back. You'll never again want to start your day without first anchoring yourself in intention. So rise not just from your bed, but from your doubt. Rise from the habits that kept you average. Rise into the identity of someone who leads their life from the front, starting with the very first hour. You don't need to change the entire world overnight. You don't need to conquer every mountain before you've taken the first step. But you do need to start. And the most powerful place to start is with your morning. Because when you wake up early, you're not just getting a head start on the clock. You're getting a head start on your life. You're stepping into discipline, into control, into a mindset of leadership. You're saying, I refuse to drift. I refuse to waste this one life I've been given. I'm going to rise with purpose, live with clarity, and move with intention. You won't feel like it every morning. Some days the bed will whisper lies that sound like comfort, but you'll know better. You'll remember what's at stake, your growth, your dreams, your identity. You'll remember that real confidence doesn't come from sleeping in. It comes from showing up repeatedly, relentlessly, without fanfare. Every early morning is a vote for the person you want to become, a declaration that you're no longer waiting for life to happen. You're creating it. You're not just awake, you're alive, engaged, intentional. So rise before the world wakes, before the noise begins. Rise for your goals. Rise for your future. Rise, because your greatness won't come from what you do once in a while. It'll come from what you choose to do every single day, especially when no one is watching. Master your morning, and you'll master your mind. Master your mind, and you'll master your life. It all starts with that first step, that early alarm, that quiet decision. Wake up early and watch everything change.